All right, hello, hello. We're back again for another IGDN Summer Series episode for 2025. I am Matthew Orr of Wet Ink Games, and I have asked, because Wet Ink has worked with all the companies, I asked representatives of Backerkit and Gamefound and Kickstarter to come on this call, and we're going to talk about crowdfunding and whether or not the industry is a slice of pie, and you'll hear from directly from representatives of all the companies. So. I want to thank all of my guests here for this panel. Uh, in order of founding of the companies, I think we have Asher McClennahan, head of games at Kickstarter. We have Heather O'Neill, a campaign strategist at Backerkit, and C.Bradley, the new business manager at Gamefound. So thank you so much, three of you, for joining me on this call to talk about games and crowdfunding specifically, like crowdfunding games.
Sure.
First, I'd like to invite you to add anything to introduce yourselves more than I have already said. Heather, you have a very long list of credits. We wear multiple hats in particular, but as sort of like kind of the icebreaker question, I thought it would be fun to ask you what's like your favorite thing that you have ever crowdfunded personally, like that you got. And for me, it is we did come from GameFound, but it was the Portal Games funded the collector's edition of Robinson Crusoe, which is my wife
Mm.
and I, that's our favorite board game. So when they were doing the big edition, we were like, oh, well, we have to get it. And we have to get the plastic monkey and the dice tower that looks like a volcano. And it's all comes in way too big of a box. It took way too long to make, but that's sort of like, but it's the collector's edition, right?
Yep.
Anyway, so it's great. That's my favorite thing that I've put money in for from a crowdfunding project. But what about you? And anything else you feel needs to be part of your introduction?
Yeah, well,
Uh,
first of all, I love Robinson Crusoe games, so I
oh
didn't even
yeah.
I missed that campaign, and it's good that I did because I might have bought it. So,
Well, they just sell it.
yeah.
They just sell it regular now.
Oh. Yeah, so I think I joined, I think I might have kickstarted my first thing on Kickstarter in either 2012 or 2013. And the things I started crowdfunding first were like local businesses and breweries, and then I started doing
Mm.
art projects and games much later. But the
Mhm.
coolest thing I got was this artist that she had found like a lot of 1,000 like vintage giant matchbooks, and she would make you a personalized
That's
diorama.
rad.
And I was
Oh,
just able to give her a list of interests and things I liked, and then she made that for me. So I still have
Wow.
it, obviously, and it's awesome.
Like the nutshell studies kind of thing,
Yes, it's
or
like everything that I like, she made it into a little matchbox that's about this big, and it just sits on my mantle or my dresser. Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's very
Amazing.
cool. I
Too
love
cool.
crowdfunds that are so community driven or like so niche like that. Like, I don't know if Backerkit or GameFound have it, but like Make 100 or whatever, where you're just like
Yeah,
super
yeah.
limited. You can only do so much stuff.
It's
You can
cool.
come up with really weird stuff to do. It's so amazing. I love it.
Well, how about you guys? What did you guys back? We'll do that, and then we can go into like or your favorite back to that we can go into
Yeah.
individual.
Any other part of your introduction? Because I just said your titles. I mean, what
Oh,
you're
sorry.
feel
Okay, I
free to
thought we were
talk
doing
about.
that. Yeah. Um,
Elaborate on yourselves
Many
as.
things. So yeah. So I'm a CEO at Ninth Level Games, which is a role-playing game
Woo.
publisher. And we've done some board games. I'm actually coming from the board game design side in the company. And then at a certain point pre-COVID, realized that like it's way better to pitch those games and not personally make board games anymore because they're expensive. So I do some board game design, run some role-playing game design, run the company. And then I'm on the board of Unpub for Unpublished Game Network to help people who are creatives, designers try to get their games improved or mentorship. And then I used to be like a tech project manager. And then during COVID times, I decided to quit and just focus on tabletop industry stuff for a couple years. And then every once in a while, I'd freelance and run a Kickstarter campaign or something for people or GameFound campaigns so that I could grab some cash. And then over the time of that and everything else, it was like, hey, would you want to work full time? So Backerkit kind of came to me and I was like, you know what? I do have like at that point 10 years experience in crowdfunding my own things and other people's things and
Yeah.
doing lead gen marketing and all that stuff. So I was like, sure. So now I've been doing that for a year. So instead of having to supplement any kind of freelancing, I'm doing that like just full time,
Mm.
Beauty.
on top of all my other full time things.
So very busy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not much. So you're just hanging out for the most part, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much just coasting along. But
Yeah,
before
just skating.
2020, I worked a full-time tech job and ran the company, so it's not too much different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Asher, how about you?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so intro stuff. I am head of games at Kickstarter. I'm really fairly new to the role, just a couple months. Previously, my friends and I started a company called Alchemy RPG. It's a virtual tabletop. And my job there, here, and historically has been focused around the business of creative acts. So I'm a lover of games. I have lots. I'm a big role-playing game fan specifically. Love board games too, but RPGs is just where I find my heart. But my creative act specifically is not in art or game design. It is in spreadsheets. It's the boring stuff. So, for a long time, my career before I got into games was figuring out how to make visionary, lofty ideas sustainable and reasonable businesses. And so, when my friends were designing and building Alchemy, they asked me to join. So, I worked on
We need a
partnerships at Alchemy.
spreadsheet guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Quintessential.
And like that's sort of like that's like a cornerstone of what I'm advocating here at Kickstarter is like, hey, let's help these creators like make sustainable businesses out of their crowdfunding campaigns instead of getting into what I call a publish or perish cycle where you feel like you have to do a crowdfunding campaign because you
Mm-hmm.
haven't aligned correctly to make sure that you can really build your business. At any rate, so that's a little bit about me. I would say I'm gonna shout out Heather. One of the favorite things that I've ever crowdfunded, the Venture Society role-playing game.
Aw.
It is
Ooh.
a socio-emotional learning RPG for kids, and I think that it's really important and it's very unique. I was listening to an interview with Quinn from Quinn's Quest about a year ago. He said that I see RPGs where board games were in 2011. Like we don't really know what an RPG is right now. We get to redefine it and find new paths of role playing in the world. And I think Venture Society is like such a great example of that. It's really cool, and I think it's really important work. So shout out Ninth Level.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All
What
Yeah, I
right.
about
guess
you?
for myself, my roots are not nearly as deep as everyone else here, which is just so cool to be a part of. My kind of history of such before getting into Gamefound was in publishing, and so I worked with all kinds of authors to basically take manuscripts into having a fully published book in hand. And I think one of my favorite crowdfunding experiences actually stemmed from that because I've loved the crowdfunding space for a long time. And an author I worked with actually crowdfunded or was publishing a superhero role-playing game. And so being able to kind of provide some input and advice on how to bring it to crowdfunding was just such a cool role to be a part of and was kind of what eventually led me to where I am now, which is technically sales, I guess, but it's very much more like customer service. Let's talk about projects, let's talk about platforms and where the best place to put them is. I think it's basic as it gets, I guess. But one of my favorite campaigns, because it was a surprise for me at the time, was when Brandon Sanderson started coming to crowdfunding. Because being a favorite
Yeah.
author for such a long time, and just to see him in my favorite space and now career was just too cool.
Hmm. He's been so, you know, we wish him all the success, right? He'll get there someday
Yeah.
on the crowdfunding
Yeah, he's
project.
gonna make it. One of these campaigns is
I
really
believe
gonna blow
this.
up for him,
It's
you
just
know?
Underrated.
Absolutely, absolutely.
uh, well, I mean, I think the thing that we've shared already is like just how broad crowdfunding can be, right? From books
Yeah.
and manuscripts and products to sort of what you were talking about, Asher, with like setting up careers and to the matchbook study dioramas. I mean, there's so many things get put on crowdfunding, and that's just within. I mean, we're all in the hobby game space, but there's
Mhm.
Yeah.
the Oculus was first funded through crowdfunding, and people do
Potato salad, dig a hole.
yeah, the dig a hole,
The
right? I
whole
mean, that's what I was thinking about. Like, I mean, people get ridiculous projects through crowdfunding, right? And
Yeah.
so that isn't going anywhere, I guess. That isn't. I'm trying to transition into like questions, but that isn't really a question. Just kind of marveling at like the how big of a thing it is. Um, but I guess that kind of mentioning Oculus kind of Kickstarter kind of feels like, or crowdfunding in general. And I'm gonna, Kickstarter is like the Kleenex here. So it's like
Absolutely. It's okay.
crowdfunding is the thing that I'm talking about when I say this. But like
Yeah.
it seems like it's a weird mix of like micro loans and like charity platforms like Indiegogo or something like that. But then also with this sort of like tech to be reductive, a tech bro sort of mentality about
Yeah.
like what if we get all this together and we establish this thing and then many people can give us money instead of like seven, instead of going on Shark Tank or whatever and getting like $1 million
Yeah.
from like somebody who's got millions to spend, it's like we go directly to the people like
That's true.
Kiva does or like the other charity sort of operations, and instead of getting a micro loan through a bank or whatever. Again, like there are platforms that existed. I feel like maybe my timeline is wrong, but I feel like it feels like crowdfunding as a thing is built on sort of these preceding infrastructures that the internet allows, right? And therefore it's able to bring sort of that idea to a new audience, right? To fund rather than a piece of technology, you're funding like the publishing of a product.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my sense of it. I don't know what you think if
Yeah.
that's an accurate sort of origin of crowdfunding as like a thing. Um,
I know
Yeah.
for, oh, sorry, Asher,
No,
you go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, whoever
I
wants to
was
go.
just gonna say for me at least, when I found crowdfunding all through Kickstarter back in uh probably 2015, 2016-ish. I used to be an unadulterated hipster when I was younger, and just being able to support all of these cool indie projects was just like the genesis of really getting into it. So I think being able to take that and carry it forwards, and for folks to be able to make careers out of that is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting it pretty close to in my perspective, Matt. I think when I think about the sort of the inflection point where crowdfunding became a real thing, like when Kickstarter went live, um, its core proposition was the world is becoming monocultural, and we need better ways to hedge against that, right? Because when you look at like getting money from a bank or investors or whomever, they will have things that they understand to be successful. And so they will seek those things out, and we lose the creativity and the innovation that can happen
Hmm.
when some human says, you know what? I want to make something that I want to make. I was
yeah.
having a conversation with somebody at God, was it? It might have been the you guys at Wet Ink, but they said
We did see
I
each other last week at PAX East, so
yeah, they said somebody had said something to me, which was I've never seen somebody's a consultant, crowdfunding nerds. Andrew from Crowdfunding Nerds said I've never seen a creation that was made for that person. Like I'm making a game that I want to play, not do well as long as they take all the time, they do, they read up, they make the right choices from like a
mm,
marketing perspective, et cetera. And then I reiterated that to somebody and they said, well, yeah, if you have a 1 in a million idea, that means there are 8,000 people that are stoked about that idea. And it's all about finding them. And I think crowdfunding is the platform for that to proliferate. And it's
Hmm.
amazing and inspiring. And I think it like really has been able to reshape the way that the whole world thinks about how products come to life. It's really cool.
Yeah, oh, there's something Matt to
oh
that.
no, go ahead, Heather.
I
I
was
was
just gonna
just
say agree with both of these things. And I would say like again, starting with the early days of Kickstarter, like 2013, 2014, up to like 2016, when it kind of like started going.
Yeah.
It's like that was also when it was very commonplace for everybody to start having a smartphone in their hand. Like I know they came out in '07, but it wasn't really commonplace. I'm rewatching the show Community, and like that went up to 2015, and they still don't have like they're all have like texting Nokias and stuff and like razors. Like what? But like so like it's so like I can't even remember a time now, like where it's like I can go on and just like see someone Instagram live right now, and I can like talk to this person, and I can like order DoorDash and I can get an Uber and I can back a project and I can do all these things right now. But it's like 10 years ago, even it was kind of like not everybody doing that. So that
mhm.
really like helped it along. And I remember as a creator, like in 2013 realizing after seeing these more arty projects and these people who were the early adopters of this format to be like, hey, that's a way that I don't have to raise 100 grand to make this project. I can actually make this project that I've been thinking about making, right? And that's exactly what we did in 2013 because it was like, oh, does anybody care about this project that came out 10 years before that? Should we relaunch it? Let's see if that
Hmm.
is the case. And then, sure enough, got enough money to do a print run and then some, as opposed to spending all of our impersonal money, investing it in the company, it flopping or not flopping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just allowed, once it got out there, so whoever had the idea, good job. But then once it got out there and people realized that not only could it just be for like charity micro grant for my art project, it could be for everything.
Yep.
It's like game changer right there, right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Creative freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I it's, to tie it back to a little bit of the sort of the tech industry origins of I think of Kickstarter, like as the company itself, like one of Kickstarter's rules, and I think I don't know if all the companies have this, but like one of Kickstarter's rules is that this is for a product.
Mhm.
You can have the ancillary things like, oh, we made a soundtrack, oh, you can also get a t-shirt, but ultimately you are making a product at the end of the Kickstarter process.
Yeah.
And I think that is different than like, GoFundMe or Indiegogo. They don't have any kind of restrictions like that. That's why you get, medical raising funds for
Yeah.
medical bills and stuff like that on those other
Mhm.
platforms. But like for Kickstarter specifically, it's like I think that was their innovation. It was like this is for a product. And I maybe also the pass fail sort of part of it, not pass fail, but like the all or nothing sort of part of it. Like that the idea of that it's sort of a gamble but it's also like a low stakes gamble because I agree with you, Heather, about like that's how our first project was for my own company. It was like we've got an idea, we asked a friend to make one piece of art and then we wrote up a description of what we want to do and we put it on crowdfunding at 10 years ago, and we raised thousands of dollars, and then we spent 2 years writing the book. Like
Yeah.
that is like bad practice now,
Yeah.
because the industry has developed for 10 years, but it was very much like does anyone else care about this idea? And you got to find out in a very visceral monetary way if anybody cared about that idea.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
Backerkit's the same as Kickstarter with like no sweepstakes, no charitable and donation. Like you can say, "Hey, I've raised money," and I guess like I personally am going to give money to them. But like as a backer, your pledge is not a charity donation. It's not a sweepstakes. It's not anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
is
same
fun.
with
Yeah.
Gamefound. So
Yeah.
it is cool because usually as far as like obviously like digital stuff comes and goes too, but just that physicality is just so neat to see what people actually do create and deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Kickstarter may be unique. I'm not sure. Backerkit maybe too. I really love the core rule of Kickstarter is and the like slogan of the company is bring your creative project to life. So it's
Mhm.
not even necessarily that it is a product. I mean, it
Mhm.
is. That's a very
Yeah, performance.
philosophical, much longer than 1 hour conversation. What is a product? Um, but
Because like
it
an event is sometimes what is on
yeah,
being
like
funded by
so
crowdfunder
somebody
or
just did an amazing crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter for like a festival that was
yeah.
like licensed by Middle Earth Enterprises. It's like a Lord
Oh
of the
wow.
Rings Brandywine festival. It's literally a Ren fair for Lord of the Rings fans. And
Oh my
like
goodness.
I was like, oh my
Sure.
God, I never even considered that you could crowdfund that. How cool is that? Shout out those guys. What a great idea. And it did so well. So yeah, it's really cool to see also like how people change the sort of definition of like what a creative project is. Cause like in much the same way that RPGs have room for definition. I think you, Matt, might have been telling me about Horse Majeure, where you're
Yeah.
two people in a horse costume trying to find an apple. Like that's an RPG,
It could have been Chris. My husband really was into that game. He backed
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It must have
I,
been. It must have been
I,
Chris O'Neill.
I'm just hearing about it for the first time, so
No, my
I'm
husband
Likewise.
backed
also
that on
into it
Zine. It
now.
was a Zine
So,
quest, and
Yeah.
he was very excited about it.
uh, so in struggling, like, I mean, we should talk about, you mentioned Zine Quest, and one of my questions is about kind of promotions and community building, and so I do want to ask about that in a second. But like the sort of like I, to if Kickstarter got it started sort of temp in time, Kickstarter didn't come packaged with originally with any kind of backer kit. So originally, or pledge manager, these again, these terms, right? It pledge manager, would I commit $50, I'm gonna get this book, but like, oh, but there's add-ons, oh, but I have to change my address. All of that kind of stuff was limited originally. The after the campaign closed, things were locked down.
Yeah.
So Backerkit came into existence originally to service as a post. You would export your data from Kickstarter, you would give it to Backerkit, and the
Mhm.
Backerkit would allow you to like manipulate all of the like data and add stuff and sell more products after the campaign, add-ons and stuff like that. Um, and now both Kickstarter and Backerkit do the other thing that they didn't do originally, as of very recently. So again, like, is this pie? Are we all eating each other's lunch? I don't know. Um, but that's kind of the original relationship there. And then
Yeah.
uh, again, I mean, I'm not exactly asking a question, but like, that's kind of correct, right? I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
misunderstand the situation,
GameFound
right?
Mhm.
included was also a
Gamefound did
pledge
the same
manager.
thing. You were just
Yeah. Started as a pledge
pledged.
manager and grew from there. Asher, building off what you were saying too about like the genesis of what started Kickstarter, it's not perfectly synonymous, but it is kind of similar to like where GameFound and BackerKit have found themselves now too, as far as like giving other options within a space to make things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
I
well,
was going to ask you were just asking Cam about like, or saying about GameFound. Like, I mean, I have GameFound kind of as coming in later as sort of like seeing these other two companies and sort of like, oh, we're going to try to do it all, or at least that's my perception, right? And it's
Mhm.
starting as like a board game alternative. Like we only do tabletop is sort of what I have the impression that GameFound initially started as. I mean, is that sort of as opposed to many of the RPGs and other tech projects and festivals and stuff that we've talked about being funded generically by
Mhm.
Kickstarter. Um, GameFound is like it's got game in the name, right? It's like we do board games and usually big ones, and that's what we do, and that's what we're best at. That's what I have the impression of. But like, is that how accurate is that?
Yeah, I say it's a little dated, but definitely on to a degree for sure. So Genesis was pledge management originally, and then beta crowdfunding for a little while as well. I think that's actually when um, Into the Cess and Citadel was funded as well.
Oh, look, you've got it on the shelf back there. Thank
I've
you.
read through the whole thing. It's a treat. I'm using it in my current campaign.
Thank you.
Um,
It's great.
but yeah, in I think what year is it? In 2024 and 2023 was I'd say when we really found our footing in crowdfunding the board game space. So last year we had eight of the top 10 crowdfunded board games, and I think specifically for board games, we were number one for the year, which was extremely exciting. And for probably the past 2 years or so, Asher, my roots in the space are RPGs as well. So I've been pushing to try to see how we can cater to that audience
Yeah.
more. And it's been really exciting. We're actually doing open submissions right now for an event inspired off of Zine Quest or also Pocketopia. Am I saying it correct, Heather?
yes.
Awesome. Similar kind of idea from that, where
Yeah.
um, riffing off that idea and trying to keep it to a smaller list of folks that we can really heavily promote at the same time. And yeah, been in the works for a couple of years. It's open submissions aren't going to be live by the time this video goes, but check out the projects. All the previews will be live by then.
Yeah, that's RPG Party, right? I don't think you
Yes,
had
sorry,
said
that
that.
is the Gamefound RPG Party,
Right.
indeed.
Well, and I do want to. I also like to hear more about Get Backer Kid and Kickstarter, like currently what the current status. We've been talking kind of in the history, but this idea of these promotions, you just named all of them basically that I had on my list as like the sort of like the Topia series you did Pocketopia and like there's Terrotopia on now as we record on Backer Kit and Zine Quest was mentioned. I mean that's
Mhm.
the thing that Backer or um the horse mature
Force majeure. Yeah. Yeah.
was
Yeah.
on there and Zine Quest is in its like I don't know seventh year or something like that
Yeah.
Mhm.
and as sort of as far as I know, like created the idea of Zine Quest, and then like that has been there are people who are said like, oh, February is Zine month now, irrespective of what platform you're on, and
Yeah.
we're gonna do small projects in the smallest month, and it's inspired by the Zine Quest. But so there's these promotions, and I guess what I'm leading up to by asking this is sort of like what is the community aspect of it, right? Like
Yeah.
the idea that each of the platforms is creating to some extent an ecosystem, right? Where
Mhm.
people are on the platform because they are seeing the projects or they're checking on their projects, and then there's ads that deliver other projects you might like. At the bottom of, and they all work very similar in that respect, is that they're all sort of every email you get, every time you're on the page, you're seeing other projects that you might be interested in because the more projects you as an individual backer back, like, the companies get a slice of every one of your donations. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
this is business.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's how
business.
business works. Yeah.
It's how business works. But to what extent is it like, I guess, is it a false dichotomy or whatever, or what do you each feel
Yeah.
about is like that idea of like the platform is for the backers, and we're creating like a community of backers who like to back certain projects of this kind, and then the creators come into that environment to pitch their projects?
Yeah.
Or is it sort of like is a platform for creators who are going to have their project showcased on the platform, and then the people are going to come in from wherever to back it? I mean, I'm sure it's both and, but like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
what do you see as the sort of your from your each perspectives, like what kind of where the line is there about like
Yeah.
keeping people on your platform or bringing people to your platform because you're featuring
Yeah.
a particular creator?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I may, to rephrase your question, is it the chicken or the egg?
Oh, exactly. I mean,
I
it's a
think is
little
sort
bit,
of the
yeah.
the existential question. I mean, if we abstract out one layer and we think about like, okay, what brings this is for game designers. So what we're looking at is like what brings revenue to games, right? And so we look at, like Cam mentioned, Gamefound, 8 of the top 10 tabletop game last year, #1 crowdfunding platform for games. If you take out late pledges, or if you include late pledges and you
Mhm.
exclude any of the RPGs that any of us
Yes.
did, and
Mhm.
there were like multiple asterisks to that. So I just want to touch on that. But also, it's worth noting that like discoverability is like a core facet of everything that I'm sure Gamefound is working on, that Backerkit is working on,
Mhm.
and generally these game designers should be working on too. I spent a lot of time in like SEO, search engine optimization.
Oh, yeah.
Discoverability, being available to the people that are seeking your game is highly important, right? It's like, and so how do we do that? We can eventize on the platform, we can pre-market, and we can use algorithmic tagging and search results. In some cases, it might look like an event. In some cases, might look like a recommendation algorithm. In some cases, it may look like simply browsability on the platform, right? So all of us do some form or another of eventization, right? Like we're in the middle of Micro May on Kickstarter. We do Make 100. We generally stick towards like make a really small, cool thing for the first time. Like that's all of ours. Kickstarter is a public benefit corporation. So like for all of its inception and every decision that we make, for the most part, especially now, purpose over profit is sort of like the modus operandi of Kickstarter. Um, we know that it hasn't maybe always felt that way with like the blockchain thing. Like we don't need to dance around that. That was maybe a misstep.
That guy doesn't
But
work there anymore, though, right?
that is exactly right. But many of the guys don't work there anymore. And we're seeing like a big resurgence in this sort of idea of being purpose. Like we are legally bound as an organization to serve the community. There it is, 30
30
minutes.
minutes.
You said it would happen. You
Yep.
predicted
And
it.
it did. Here we go. I should be back. There we go.
Perfect.
Like it's our job to serve the community. So when we look at all of our heuristics, we're in like an inherently different place than Gamefound and Backerkit are, right? Because they need backers and projects kind of simultaneously, and we need to expose cool and relevant projects. So like I think Gamefound has 38-ish games on the platform today that are live.
Mhm.
I think Backerkit has like 50 some odd, and we have 511 in tabletop games. So we all have like super unique challenges that we face. And I think for
Yeah.
Kickstarter, we love the events as a way to get creators that maybe don't even consider themselves creators yet to make. Like Zine Quest is such a cool example. I have a bunch of friends that just ran them for the first time this year
Yeah.
because
Love
it
it.
felt more accessible, right? Um,
Uh,
but
it's definitely like I know people that like
yeah,
they put the idea out there for Zine Quest and then they get, $500 or whatever, and they're like,
yeah,
well, I guess I got to spend the next 3 months writing this because
that's
like,
right. Yeah,
I
Yeah,
just
and like
launched with an idea. It's
yeah,
low stakes.
it's kind of like that old school Kickstarter vibe in 2013 and 14, where
yeah,
like you can
exactly.
go in a little more low stakes. There's
Yep,
not all these like requirements, like, oh, well, you don't have a preview PDF and you don't have
yep.
this and you don't have a review. You don't need that. I mean, we've been doing Zine Quest since it started. I think we missed one year when it was in August. I don't know why they moved it to August that year, but it messed us up. But
Yeah,
then
that's a weird one.
everybody I
The
talked to,
blockchain told them to do it.
that's what
That's
it
right.
was. Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
right.
But yeah, so everyone I talk to who's like a new creator, and that's going to be a lot of people here. We're talking about never crowdfunded before. That's what you should start with if you're an RPG creator. I think that is your number one best thing to try is the Zine month. I mean, again, I'm saying Zine Quest, but you can put it anywhere if it's a Zine month thing.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
low stakes, ask for under $1,000
Yep.
and just get it done. It's going to force you to make it. And then
Yeah.
it's easier the next time you make something, and the next time you make something, and the next time you make
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So I agree with Asher is like that's a perfect time or a perfect way, and for Make 100 to get these people who aren't creators yet to become creators. And you
Mhm.
might lose, 10 or 20% are like, that wasn't for me. I'm never doing
Mhm.
it again. But maybe 75% are like, that was cool. I'm going to do one next year, or I'm going to do a bigger project. And I talk to people like every week who are like, well, I did this small one and then I, made a soft cover and now I want to do this deluxe game, because they kind of like work their way up the
Yep.
chain, and they become a
Yeah.
crowdfunding creator now. And, that's a good way to get people to dip their toes into it, stay around for us.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, not be like, you should make this big box Robin Crusoe game for your
Yeah.
first game because that's bad.
100%. Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
think no matter how well prepared you are for the first one, you're just going to be a huge learning experience and you got to give yourself a lot of grace.
Yeah. OSIF is what I call it. You need to add OSIF to everything that you do. If you're not familiar with that, I use 20%. That's the oh shit, I forgot.
I always use
Uh,
20% too. Yeah.
yep. You
Like
gotta
my
have an
personal
OSIF
projects.
built in. Yeah. But like events are amazing for that. And I think like Backerkit does some really cool. I think Backerkit like clicks down a little farther on their events,
Well,
like
The,
Yeah, yeah.
Terrotopia,
well,
which I think is really cool. We do like
Mothership
a
I've never
Month.
seen
generic like
this.
witch
I've
start.
if you want me to get into it, yeah, we have a thing called collabs or group
This is what I was
collabs.
gonna say. Like
So
you
it
you
kind
back
of is,
multiple projects and you
yeah,
get like extra cards that like it's
yeah.
atypical. It's
I
atypical. So
would say that
please,
that's our new innovation, in the last year is like instead of it just being, oh, we're doing this thing and anyone can go in and create it, it's like, oh, we're doing this thing like Pintopia or Terratopia, and that will now take you to this landing page. It's like a separate landing page, and it's got other content streaming, comments just
Yeah.
to the page. And then the projects are like below there. And then there might be like, hey, if you back this many of these projects, you get this like pin. I think for Terratopia, you're getting like a handkerchief to like wrap your cards in. And Mothership Month last year, which was
Mhm. Mhm.
that was a curated one where Tuesday Night Games decided who was going to be in it, and then like they gave something out. So like that's like a evolution of these things, I would say, and
Yeah.
seeming to be pretty good so far.
And it's the discoverability solve,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? Like that's
absolutely.
how Backerkit with maybe just it's not quite as proliferate, right? Like not I'm not trying to be like yeah, I'm just
I
like
get it.
small, it's like smaller, right? And but like then
Absolutely.
you niche down and then you really highly engage a small number of projects as opposed to like our problem, which is like, okay, how do we get the right projects in front of everybody? Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, if, everybody who is listening might not know this, but I'm sure you two know this. Is like it's very rare that a regular average person backs more than one project in a year. So, like, if you already have them in, and there's an incentive if they back three, then you can hopefully get a couple of them to back three, and maybe even some back five, and a bunch only back
Yeah.
one. But like, that's kind of what we're trying to do is like get people to come in and back more projects or even consider backing for the first time
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like reveal all the numbers or anything like that, but like obviously it's this and you said curation, and I want to pick up on that piece in a second, but like these promotions, right? I mean, are they successful like in getting that like all of it, right?
What if
Are
we
the
all said
people
no right now?
what
Yeah,
I
they're
that'd be great because then you would there's no failures, only learning opportunities, right? So like
Yeah, that's fair.
Well
but
put.
like
Well put. I love
uh
that.
I mean I don't know. I mean it's sort of like I see that and I'm like as a publisher I'm like looking at the like the thing with the cards that is the pocket the Terratopia that's like again we're talking about
Yeah.
stuff that happened in the past but it's happening right now as we're talking but the idea that like extra cards and stuff like that I'm a big fan of tarot decks and I have I don't know 8 or 9 over here on my shelf and I look at crowdfunding and I'm like oh I could get so many more and this is a why this art is great or they've done the wild
Mhm.
thing and one of the things that's so common is like a traditional one has these 78 cards, but then like you can vary that up a little bit. And this one has 100 cards because I added 12 custom things and, or like they're community supported or whatever, where it's like we took suggestions from this poll and we added in these cards based on the community and, we got these artists involved. So the idea that like it's a Terratopia and if you back like 3 decks, then you get like extra cards. It's like, that on one level that does like that generates that FOMO or whatever that does make you want to get more, but it's also a great fit for that particular promotion to get these sort of specialized cards that are coming from somewhere else that fit in your deck or whatever. I've said too much about that in particular, but like the idea is that like it's that whole thing, like discoverability or whatever that you said, Asher, where it's like who likes tarot cards? The person who just backed a tarot card deck. And so like put them next to
Yeah.
each other so that they can see them both. And then yeah, you might get both. I mean, the logic is there. I don't know that from you're trying new ones. So like are they going to be are we going to see these kind of projects in the future, right? I mean, more promotions or the same promotions or, obviously Zine Quest continues. So like I'm sure the answer is yes, that these things are working as far as like bringing new people in as backers, bringing new people in as creators, and continuing to get them to click the button that lets them put in their credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know,
definitely.
Cam, if you've done, other than this RPG party coming up, if you've done as many, I know like there's the ones known ones from Kickstarter and then Backerkit, once it started crowdfunding, has kind of been doing them, but I'm not sure if you had been involved with other ones before this new one to have any comment on.
Yeah, there's one that we do quarterly, which I really really like. We call them feasts, and so the
Okay.
idea behind them is for the most recent one we did was 20 projects, which might have been a little bit too much, but the idea behind them is for creators to launch their previews as part of a live streamed advertised event, and then so that way everyone can kind of benefit from each other's audiences and get a big bump of followers really early on to help them be as successful as possible. So that's one that we do quarterly. I think the next one will probably be coming out as about when this is live. I think at the end of July is when it's going to be. They're one of my favorite things. There's an interview process that goes along with them, and then everything's all revealed with special placements on our platform too.
So it's like a big launch event where that's you get news about it's a feast of new stuff. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, exactly. Like a holiday season of new previews to check out.
Interesting.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, what is some of the well, you were going to say some, Asher. I had a question for Heather, but
Oh, I was just gonna make a comment about eventization
yeah,
versus
you
like
used that word earlier.
yeah,
Tell us
you
this
know,
word.
I'm a recovering tech bro, so forgive me if I use stupid words like that. Yeah, so like activations, eventization, there's a couple of ways that you can uh, when we talk about marketing, and I think this is great for designers too. It's all the way that I see it is that we're all in a factory, and that factory has levers. What levers can we pull that make the best progress for our project, for our platform, whatever the case may be? At Kickstarter, we use eventization like Make 100, Zine Quest, whatever, to encourage small creators to do small stuff. The other way that you can eventize things is like as a promotional thing. Like you should run your large, medium, or small campaign in this event because we as a platform will be sort of making a hullabaloo around it. And like so that is marketing, to put very simply. You know what I mean? And like
Sure.
it's all marketing at the end of the day, but like that is like a very primary sort of version of marketing. And then there is long tail activation, promotion, and discoverability, right? Which is I want, like, as a platform, we talk a lot about creating or reducing friction. And that's just in software and in games, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
so important to design a rule book to be frictionless so that you open it and you're like, okay, everything's laid out in the order that I expect it to be. It all makes sense and it's really easy and streamlined to use. As a platform, I think we are all sort of very responsible to the creators of these games to create minimal friction, both for
Mhm.
backing at like the point of backing, but also discovering what's next, like what the other things that are relevant to them are. And I think more than eventization, I think eventization is great. I think we should all participate in and do it, bring your creative project to life. It's a nice little marketing bump. But I think it's also really important to consider that, like, there's a much longer tail of what you're doing, which is like, how do people find my game in this platform? How do I maximize the number of eyes that hit it? And what is the right decision for me there? And I think in a lot of ways that is abstracted out. That's like not really related to the eventization. So we're indexing towards events in this like conversation, which I think is great. Um, but I just want to like shout out the little guy, like think about it on a longer tail than that. Like if an event is coming up, but it's not the right time to run a project, don't don't do it.
Mhm.
Don't run your project yet. If you're not ready, it's okay because like I know it's a conversation that we're having constantly at Kickstarter, which is like how do we uplift projects every day? Like how do we increase discoverability and make people excited about projects just every time they hit the platform? And we're
Mhm.
thinking about that. So um, don't get too caught up like, oh my God, this is such a cool project, like Zine Quest. I really want to do a zine. If you don't actually have an idea, take a step back. There's always going to be another Zine Quest, or you can do it later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I wanted to say.
Um, one's like building off that too. One area that I think is has been really cool to see growth and change in is how crowdfunding previews are handled. Like treating it more of a community hub to bring people to, engage people, and grow over time. Like not taking just a month or two to build it out, but taking much longer to really build up that
Mm.
follower count and engage with those folks too. I'm sure this is probably similar for all platforms, but the more engaged folks are before a project launches, the higher probability that they'll support once it does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I know you had a question for me, Matt, but I think we're probably going to have some time that we'll say some don't do's because I had a whole bunch of those right after Asher talked. I'm like, well, let's go into your question and then we'll see.
Yeah, I don't even remember exactly what it was. I think it was
Oh,
I don't even remember what I was. Oh, I was going to ask about the who invented the isn't it Backerkit that does the campaign never ends as long as people keep backing like
yep.
that
Yeah, the
isn't
overtime mode. Yeah,
yeah,
it's basically just
that's an
like
event that's
similar to the late
marketing.
pledge idea. We already have pre-orders through our pledge manager. So like we have that where you could finish a campaign and like immediately open pre-orders on our like through the Backerkit pledge manager.
Mhm.
But this was like a way to like kind of like you were saying, like keep people engaged. Because what always happens is there's like that 48 hours left kind of email.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think we do like a 9 or a 15-hour one too, but people don't see it and they miss it. So there's like, okay, this becomes like an event where people might be talking on Discord and Reddit about it. And then it's like, oh, what is going on? And then they can go over and hopefully like you can capture more people because you'll probably hear creators constantly. I'm sure this happened to you, Matt, where like it ends and people are like, can I still when is it going to
Right.
open pre-orders? It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like we've been talking about this for 30 days or more
Yeah,
than
yeah.
30 days, but yet somehow you missed it, So
It doesn't
that's
seem to
basically what it
matter
was. Yeah.
how much pre-publicity. There will definitely be
Yeah.
people who hear about it right at the end,
Oh, a
oh,
Kickstarter I worked on 4 years ago
just
just was
missed it.
like, hey, I never got my pledge. I
Yeah.
think, and it's like, what, man?
Yeah.
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 Where you
Oh,
been?
that is definitely one of the other, I mean, that's another whole panel that we're doing about like when does a crowdfunding end? And the answer is never.
Never,
It
Yeah.
continues on forever. Um
Well, yeah. And I would like to chat a little bit if it's okay about the
yeah.
marketing thing that Asher said. So I also come from a marketing background originally, and
Yeah.
I would like to stress to you all as listening as probably designers, this is a marketing campaign. It does
Yep.
not matter how good your game is,
Yeah.
honestly. It doesn't matter if it's the most innovative game mechanic, unless you're marketing
Yep.
it that way and it's actually getting conveyed that way.
Mhm.
So many people throw up a game and it's a really good game and it doesn't fund or it makes 110%. And then this huge IP goes out and makes 8 million. And you go, oh my God, I'm not good. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
It's a marketing campaign. So you have
Yeah.
Yep.
to approach it differently than making the game.
Right.
So that's like what you
Uh,
got to think about. And if you're not comfortable doing that, you should probably hire a
Uh,
service to help you do that or
I
a consultant. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you can.
one of my friends had a campaign earlier this year that really struggled, and every time I saw like his description of the game, I was like, I've played this game. This is not how I would describe this game. Like
yeah.
you're missing your mark. But that's
Yep.
like that I wasn't hired to give that advice, or
Right.
and they did finally get to the finish line, and the book's going to come out. It's going to be great. But
Yep.
like it is sort of two separate projects, and I think the that is certainly a struggle for people who are creators, especially if you have any success at all, and you do want to come back for the second project after you threw it on Zine Quest as a lark. Now you want to try and do it as a thing. It's like you've got to then be a game designer and a project manager and then a
Yeah.
marketer, and like it's very hard to do everything well. And yeah, it is sort of it's a whole other job to market your products. Because I completely agree with you, Heather, that it's like it's a different thing than game design.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
different game you're designing for, right? The game of eyeballs on and
yeah.
what appeals and
I would say it's even different than a product release. If you're direct to product
Oh, yeah.
release, still marketing, but it's different. This
yeah,
is completely its own kind of thing. And it's just
yeah,
so happened that tabletop climbed into this because the industry was kind of strange and it was new, it was growing at that time, So we all kind of got in there. And that's how tabletop games are mostly, indie
Yeah.
ones at least are definitely backed now. But it's definitely one of those things where I see it. I mean, I used to cringe, and now I'm just so used to it where I'm like, "No, why did this person launch with 3 backers followers before?" It's like
Yeah.
there's just it's not even anything about the project or even the person. There's just a wealth of knowledge you need to know. There's a lot of skills you need.
Yeah.
A lot of nowadays noise, as Masher said, 500 projects at once, given time.
Mhm.
Everybody uses advertising now because social media is a nightmare. And
Mhm.
it used to be you could rely on that a little bit better. So it is tough. And I'm not saying it's not going to be easy if you crowdfund, except for maybe if you ask for $100 on ZeneQuest, maybe that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's you don't go into it lightly, is what I should say. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't have too much time left, but you said you wanted to talk about some don'ts, and I would love to hear those from all of you. Like what doesn't work on your platform or what doesn't work in general from your point of view. And then we can try to hit a higher note on the way out. But like, I mean, yeah, what are some things to avoid for sure, especially like from your perspectives, each as your respective platforms?
Man. I think don'ts is hard because they're deeply contextual, right? Like
Yeah.
there are don'ts for everything. Here are the conversations that I have the most often. The first thing, don't wait until you're about to go live to understand what your cogs are, what your pricing tiers are, and what that funnel looks like. There is a very important pricing psychology funnel to every one of your tiers. You have to start from this very simple, kind of more economic tier and move into you send people on a journey down to a sort of higher tier that is the right value to cost proposition for them. And that takes way more time and way more care than you think it does.
Mhm.
Um, so do that. The other thing that I just want to impart on everybody that's thinking about running a Kickstarter or crowdfunding campaign, um, don't do it alone. It is very
Mhm.
likely that you have a community of people that will help you and they won't ask you for anything. If this is your first game, democratize everything that you can. Share with your community, get feedback from your community. And that could be friends or family. It could be a Facebook group. There's some great like RPG design Facebook groups that I'm constantly lurking in.
Yeah, yeah.
Like reach out to people. You don't have to do this alone. It's like a core proposition of crowdfunding is that like you're not alone. Like people also want to share in this victory with you. Um, don't think that you have to do it all alone, and don't think that you have to do it all alone and quickly, because that's a great way to set yourself up for a position that is full of feel bads, and you don't deserve that, and you don't want to end up in that position. Those are the two things that I talk about most often, and then everything else is like deeply contextual and like super niche.
Yeah,
Right.
But
building
those are
off that part too, I was also just going to add like the community shouldn't just be during the crowdfunding stage. That shouldn't be just when you're engaging with lots of folks. Like
Yeah.
all the design elements and also grassroots community building too. Like looking at Trench Crusade, which had a phenomenal campaign on Kickstarter last year. I got to see a
Yeah.
presentation that they ran recently about all of the mistakes that they made in making their game.
Yeah.
And it is extremely inspiring to listen to because it was all just passion first rather than doing what they were told would do good.
Mm.
And if I don't know if it's floating around online, I think it might be on YouTube. Definitely recommend watching it because it's just so full of passion. And like their lead up to putting their preview live was many, many months of just engaging with
Yep.
people in Discord and Facebook and just created such a passionate community around it long before ever taking it to crowdfunding.
Cool. Any other do you have any more or do you want me to go next while you're thinking? I
Oh,
have I have
oh, me.
one.
I feel like I've yapped
Yeah, no, I was saying
plenty.
Cam, saying
Yeah.
Cam.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
The
You have
other
another
one,
one,
which
Cam, go ahead, or I can go next.
yeah, I'll share one more quick one too. So shipping costs are such a
mm,
challenge ever since COVID, and obviously with tariffs going on too. Um, trying to be it's tricky because like you might not have them all set up before you're ready to launch, but it like the first 2 days are so important in a crowdfunding campaign, and if there's a huge backlash over shipping costs, it can derail the whole thing. So trying to be as on the ball with shipping as possible, and I think if you get up to around the 30% of what the game is going to cost, then that's when people are going to have blowback over it. Yeah, and anything over there, that's definitely a danger zone.
Yeah,
it's a good number.
I would, yeah, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit again because remembering it's a marketing campaign. The number one no, I think, is setting the wrong expectation with your lead up before you launch. And this was
Yep.
worse when there wasn't these robust pre-launch pages, which there are now, at least. But it used to be, I see the picture, I have this little description, looks like a $50 game. Then it's either a $150 game or a $20 print and play. And you're like, wait a second, this isn't what you showed me, right?
Mm,
Hmm.
So, like, if you're not setting the right expectation, it doesn't matter how many followers you have beforehand, because when they go to back it, you're not going to convert as much, right?
Hmm.
Yep.
And you want to be converting good leads. The other don't is like I wouldn't pay a lot of money before let's say 8 weeks before you launch for advertising, unless you're huge, which I'm assuming we're not millionaires that we're talking to here that are
Yep.
big corporations. So, the idea being like you can do like the grassroots, you can do $50 a week Facebook ads or meta ads, you can do like low level stuff. And then when you really pick your launch date, because it might shift a couple times, it's a good idea if that happens because you don't want to just rush.
Hmm.
I would say like I wouldn't put a lot of money into things until you get closer. That would be my other thing. And potentially on how small the campaign is, I don't know if you do need to pay for any more than that. But that I just
Yep.
see a lot of people spend a lot of money or too early on advertising or art, and then they completely change the project or they push it back and just dropping 10, 20 grand and you haven't even like really gotten ready to like put your launch date out there. It's a problem. Don't do that. So those are my two like
Yeah.
no,
feedback things for people,
I
because some
mean,
people get excited and they hire the artist and they do all this
Yeah.
stuff, they
mhm,
start
mhm.
advertising and they put an ad in a magazine, and then it's like no, like you aren't even written, it hasn't even been written yet, like let's go
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
if you have money to put something in a magazine and you haven't even written it yet,
I know.
like
I'm just
you're,
saying, I've talked to people who've
I've,
done this stuff. And it's
I,
usually first timers that just don't know how you're
yeah,
supposed to do it. Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And to the launch date too, that's such a good one as well because it's
mm,
something I saw in merchant publishing quite often is people tend to get really set on a date that they've set for themselves. And at the end of the day, there's no better time to launch it than when you and the project are well and truly ready for that campaign to go. So, it's kind of speaking in like when you're leading up to launch, absolutely promote it that it's on the way, but you can speak in really generalized terms like planning to launch Q1
Coming soon.
2026,
Yeah.
coming
Thank
soon.
you.
Exactly. And then you can make that a little bit more granular as you get more and more sure. But
Yep.
don't be absolutely sure until you 110% are.
I guess the other thing would be that I thought about just again, this is just a good rule of thumb for anyone who's going to be crowdfunding for the first time is like we talked about the tier costing cost like know what your costs are, okay? For real. Like if you don't know what your real costs are, you're going to potentially get caught later. So like what's the minimum you can do? What's your art costs, editing
Yep.
costs, shipping costs right now, add 20% to it, maybe more, depending on how long it's going to be. Like, just there's a lot more that goes into it that I see people have gotten super, super boned on. Like, I have this one person years and years ago, way back in the day. They launched this Kickstarter. It was their first Kickstarter, and they made like 30 grand, and they were so excited. And then they like put a thing, I don't know if they told me or they messaged me and were like, hey, how do I see how much I made for shipping? And I was like, no, oh, you made 30,000. That's what you made. They thought they made 30,000 on pledge tiers. And then the shipping was, and this was just like,
Oops.
they didn't calculate it right. They thought they were doing good. They were spending money. And it was like, oh, whoops, you know? So,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
like know your costs.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
said cogs earlier. If you said, let me write that down, that sounds important. You don't have a launch date yet. Cancel the launch date. You need to know what cogs is
Yep.
before
Yep.
you run your campaign.
Yes. I mean, there's, again, also some people, it's so for self-publishing, there's a lot of people that self-publish and do crowdfunding, and
Yep.
that's fine. But you might find that you don't want to be a publisher. And I understand for TTRPGs, it's sometimes the only path to getting it out. I understand
Mhm.
that. But at the same time, there might be better ways you can do this, like than crowdfunding, because I do see a lot of people that have amazing skill in creative and they cannot handle the other side of it. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a real struggle for to do. I mean, like I was saying earlier, like the job of being a publisher and a designer and a marketer and devising a great con strategy and going to cons and running your own games, like that takes so many different, those are all each a separate skill set. And
Mhm.
you're either a super genius and you can do them all, or you gotta outsource some of that to other people who do one or the other than better than you.
Yep.
I think that's I don't run my own games at cons, like if I can avoid it. It's not that I don't like playing games, it's that like I have other things that I feel I need to be doing when I'm at a con, other than playing the actual games that I helped make.
Yep.
But I hire people to run the games for me because they're good at that and they love to do it. And then the games get played, and then people come to my booth and they say I had a good time with this person, and I am like, and then I'm in the booth to sell them the game. Anyway, yes, there's so many things, and that's all getting away from crowdfunding, but yeah, so many things to do, and very hard to keep track of all the things. So yeah, give yourself
It's a
more
lot of
time, and
hats.
it's a lot of hats. It's a lot of hats. Um, I mean, I think we've covered most of the stuff that we talked about. We didn't get into uh, dire predictions for the future. I don't know that we want to. But is there any like sort of final? We're almost at an hour of recording time. So is there any sort of final like pitches for your company? What kind of who's the like who? What's the first step if somebody wants to have heard you and we want to hear, start with your company as to get us on set up as a creator at one of your companies, or where can people find you? And what final like, we'll do where can people find you next? But like any sort of final things you haven't gotten to say yet about like specifically each of your companies, about like onboarding people or things you're offering right now, or promotions that are coming in the future, like anything that you want to say specifically about your companies, and then we'll do your wrap up.
I'd say rather than company specific, I'd say come and talk to us because there's all kinds of amazing folks that work at all of our companies. And so come forward, share what your project is, and chat platform fit.
So like come forward as in like he'd send you an email or like
Oh
is
yeah. Send
yeah.
an email and go from there basically. For me, like I speak with a lot of first-time creators, and it's like obviously I work from Gamefound, so I do have some innate bias there. But I don't like to just say, "Hey, come to Gamefound. It's 110% going to be amazing." It's like, no, let's talk about your project and
Mm,
then kind of feel it out that way. So that's how I like to approach things.
great. Any
Yeah,
other
and I think
final?
like for Backerkit crowdfunding, again, we have other services that support, other platforms, but for the crowdfunding portion, just organically, the niche has kind of been tabletop role-playing games. That's
Mhm.
who seem to kind of go over there more and more, and other art projects and things like that. Whereas I think like the bigger box miniature type games are like more of a game found niche, right? So if I'm talking
Mhm.
to somebody, I'm like, welcome to take it anything you want, but if you're not sure where you should be, I kind of always say that like, you know, Kickstarter, I don't want now Amazon sounds like a bad thing, but I was saying it's like the Amazon back, everything's there. And then you got your niche for board games and your niche
Mhm.
for RPG kind of right now.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I see as of right now. I do think that will continue to change, but that's just kind of where Gamefound and Backerkit have kind of fallen at the moment. Um,
It'd
and
be a
not
really
to say that
interesting
it
case
won't be
study of like how
successful
that
on the
happened too.
yeah, I think they'll all be successful anywhere depending on how you do them. It just
Yeah.
so happened that that's kind of how it fell out for us. And then promotion wise, really, I mean, on backerkit.com, they can see these topias. So it'd be like Pintopia, Booktopia, Comictopia. So if you have different projects, you can sign up right there to have your project in there as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts from you, Asher?
Yeah. I think for me, I think the core thing that I want people to walk away with when it comes to Kickstarter is what I care most about and what we as an organization care most about in crowdfunding is equity. It's really important that in games, we don't create a world of haves and have-nots. And I think that that is a challenge. When we have, like right now, we have Restoration Games is doing like Battle Monsters, Godzilla versus Kong, huge IP, will be a huge campaign.
Mhm.
Ted Ed is doing their first game, Pandora's Legacy. They're like a nonprofit organization. And then we have a bunch of really small like indie projects and like Cardboard Alchemy is doing Flamecraft and there's a lot of stuff. I would say that we are really focused on creating an experience that is functional and useful and valuable to every backer on the planet and every creator on the planet. And niching down, I think, is a really great user acquisition strategy for Gamefound and for Backerkit. I think the position that we are in is we as an organization refuse to live in a world where we are cutting crazy deals for large organizations because that doesn't benefit the community. I think it has problems. It creates problems for it. And so I'm open to talk to anybody. If you do RPGs, if you do miniatures, pick the right platform for you. I think
Mhm.
that there are a lot of people that feel like one platform is better than another. Don't just talk to me or Cam or Heather. Talk
Exactly.
to everybody that you
Yeah.
know that has run a campaign and make a decision that's right for you. But yeah, I think Kickstarter's position is one that it's really exciting that there's a bunch of innovators in the space that are like really creating new features that are interesting and engaging. And it's like, okay, I see like why that's useful. Um, but we feel deeply, deeply beholden to maintaining a world wherein every creative project can be on an equal footing.
All right.
So chat with
Well,
us, games at kickstarter.com or Asher at kickstarter.com. Ooh, maybe edit that one out. I get a lot of emails. No, email me, Asher at kickstarter.com. Let's do it.
the platform that this video on will have hundreds of views at most. So well, great. And Asher already said the numbers, so that was what I was going to do next. Ash, where can people reach out to you directly, or where should people reach out directly? Give us uh, some links that will be in the description as well. Uh, Heather,
Heather,
where
do you
can
want to go
For
first?
sure,
people?
yeah. I mean, it's backerkit.com. And there's a crowdfunding tab, like where you can, it goes right to where you can see their live projects. But if you want to learn more about the crowdfunding portion of it, you can click there. And then I'm Heather at backerkit.com.
Heather at backerkit.com. So easy.
Pretty simple.
Cam,
Yeah.
what
Awesome.
about you?
Gamefound.com for the basics. You can go check out all things going on, crowdfunding, late pledge, and pledge managers there. But if you do want to fund with us, I'd say reach out to me directly and let's talk about the project. So my email is c.bradley@gamefound.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much again for all three of you joining me this hour, talking about crowdfunding from each of your perspectives. I want to say that this has been part of the summer series by the IGDN, the Indie Game Developer Network. We are a non-profit international trade organization set up to increase the diversity and representation in RPGs by lowering the barriers for entry into the organization or into the hobby, right? So if you're a small-time producer, come and talk to us as the IGDN. We are Brain Trust. We are a force projection of all our small little projects together. You can find more about us as an organization at igdnonline.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see ya at a con or at another video.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you
Bye.
so much.